As a lifetime fan of RPGs, there are so many that have influenced me and are, in my opinion, timeless classics. Games like Suikoden 1 and 2, Terranigma, Xenogears, Breath of Fire, Final Fantasy VI, and so many more have shaped my childhood and love for gaming. This was the golden era of JRPGs, and since then we haven't had a lot of these franchises in the modern era, and have had to look to the indie developers to step in and fill the void left by the AAA developers that have since moved on. When I first heard of Chained Echoes, it was suggested to me by Steam based on my having played and loved games such as RFL and Shadows of Adam, both of which are games you should definitely play. And so I checked out the game's demo and immediately fell in love with it and needed to know more about the game and when it was coming out. When I got the opportunity to review the game, I immediately dove right in and am here today to talk about this game and if it's truly the spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger that we've waited decades for. The story of Chained Echoes takes place on Volandis, a continent that is over 3,000 years old and is home to a rich and robust history. Volandis also has a long history of wars that have occurred for over 156 years between the three kingdoms of the continent, Terran, Ascania, and Garvos, all vying for the complete and total dominance. Due to a tragedy that took the lives of untold tens of thousands of people, the three kingdoms eventually come together to sign a treaty of peace due to none of them wanting to take ownership of the catastrophe. In the year of 806, exactly 1 year following the signing of the peace treaty, destiny pushes forward various individuals to come together to stop the inevitable tides of war from awakening again. What I truly love about Chained Echoes is how it goes about presenting a story by way of giving us shifting perspectives between the cast to showcase their viewpoints and opinion, backgrounds and motivations, which makes them feel like fully realized living characters. Most RPGs fail in this regard as they often will present you the main characters that the story revolves around and everyone else is just there to be plot pieces that are only relevant when the story calls for them to be and only then to be pushed back into the background once again and forgotten. This makes for worlds that are incredibly static and unrealized. Chained Echoes goes above and beyond to not only flesh out its characters but also establish the lore of the world and the nations and its people within it with such intricate care that it's impossible to not stand back and be in awe of what Matthias Linda and team created here, as this level of world building, while dense, is unlike anything you'd find in any other indie game, let alone any AAA game. Add on to all of the above is the writing of the dialogue, which truly shines and gives every character you meet from the main cast to the villains and numerous NPCs a very believable personality and sense of being. Each of these characters have whole ideologies and belief systems that sway on the spectrum scale from mild to insanely devout, and yet because of this and the masterful storytelling, you get to see how your cast has to handle all of this and even challenge their own beliefs and values. The game tackles some serious subjects that can be difficult to stomach at times, but it also isn't afraid to throw in humor to lighten up the mood when the moment calls for it. This is honestly some of the best storytelling that I've seen in an RPG since Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, and Suikoden 2. When it comes to the gameplay, it's very much Chrono Trigger-like with a lot of abilities carried over from that game, such as X-Slash and more, while being its own beast at the same time. Battles play out in a turn-based fashion with you being able to see the turn order in the top right corner, a risk versus reward meter called an overdrive bar, character health and TP rates or tactical points rates on the bottom right corner, and finally the command options being attack, skills, items, and defend. If you play any classic or traditional JRPGs, then you will know what to expect here, especially if you play Chrono Trigger, as the game is heavily inspired by its battle system, yet where this game differentiates is the overdrive bar, among other things. The overdrive bar has 3 segmented sections that you have to pay attention to: yellow, green, and red. Every action that you take either moves the overdrive bar further to the right or to the left, which can be to your advantage or disadvantage, as the yellow area is a starter range with no buffs or debuffs, while getting into the green area can give you attack and defensive buffs as well as additional chances at critical hits, while going into the red area opens you up to taking more damage as well as being susceptible to critical hits and other disadvantages. This system, while on the surface simple, is in place to make each battle play out differently and prevents you from spamming skills, thus forcing you to play strategically. Outside of combat, there are numerous side quests to partake in that are all well integrated into the game's plot and world that beg for you to explore and seek them out, as they offer valuable rewards for completing them. And speaking of rewards, there's a reward board which reminds me of the license boards found in Final Fantasy XII, and upon completing various objectives, you'll be rewarded with items and equipment. Graphically speaking, Chain Echoes is one of the most beautiful pixel art games that I've seen this year. It just goes above and beyond what you would expect from any game, and it looks like it could have come out in the 16 and 32-bit eras. The environments range from lively villages and kingdoms to war-torn battlefields and more, with a level of detail that you don't see in games like this, as you'll have battles going on in the background and lively markets and more in towns. The character models are not only refreshingly detailed but skillfully animated. The character portraits all look like a modernized take on the character portraits that you would see in games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, albeit with a simpler design. The game's OST is composed so well that I often wonder if the developers were able to get Yoshinori Mitsuda on board to compose for them, because every track you hear, from the hard-rocking battle theme to the serene tranquility of the towns and fields, is all masterfully crafted. Performance-wise, Chain Echoes runs buttery smooth on Nintendo Switch with no frame rate or performance issues that I've run into. Regardless of whether you're playing this game portably or docked, it is simply stunning, but even more so on that OLED screen if you happen to have that version of the Nintendo Switch. On the Steam Deck, I did run into some issues with the game's controls not working after I accidentally touched the screen, and then there were points where the game froze and crashed. This only happened to me twice at the time of this review and hasn't occurred since then. When it comes to the downsides, for me, it's mainly two things that hinder this game from perfection. And that's the overbearing amount of tutorials in the beginning, which felt a bit heavy-handed and unnecessary, leading to moments for me of, yeah, I get it. Now let me just play the game and figure things out on my own. And that really comes down to a design sensibility, as that's more so for the modern crowd than it is for those of us who grew up in the era of read the manual and figure it out as you go. The other issue is the fact that for all the tutorials that the game throws at you, there's no glossary or resource section to be able to recall aspects of the game's story and gameplay mechanics or characters. It's an incredibly odd omission that I hope is patched in with future updates. And wrapping everything up, Chained Echoes is honestly one of the most insanely ambitious RPGs that I've played in decades, that's not afraid of telling a decidedly adult story and experimenting with presentation and gameplay mechanics. It has masterful world building, a superbly written cast of characters, exceptionally balanced challenge, and is one of the absolute best games of 2022. And as a side note, because you can pet animals in this game, this makes this a strong contender in the running for Game of the Year. No, I'm serious, it really is. This is a must-play game, so if you get the opportunity to play Chained Echoes, play it, whether it's on PC, on your Steam Deck, on your Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 or 5, or on Game Pass for your Xbox. Just play this game, because this is a masterpiece.